It's time for Reason.
Do you think that there would be a federal government in this administration right now if we have more states, whether it's Kansas or anywhere in the country, say, you know what, I believe that I'm going to go ahead and expand my Medicaid program and I'm going to look for federal aid in order to make that happen? What do you think they're going to say? As we're trying to limit some of these social programs with a Republican majority in both chambers and a Republican presidency, what do you think is going to happen?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. What's up? Welcome into the Voice of Reason. It is a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration continues to excite you as you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You are ready for the weekend. It has been one heck of a week this week. It's been a week and a half, really, as there's a lot going on. Summertime right around the corner, holidays right around the corner, special events and promotions that are happening right now. It's a lot of fun, but it's also chaotic, and we love being right in the middle of it. I am Andy Hoosier, and good morning to you. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It is 8 minutes past the hour, and I want to hear from you today. We have a big show coming up today, a lot of great guests and a lot of things happening as the 7 o'clock hour. Hour number 2, Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. He'll be joining us in studio. We try and get him in about once a month or so to talk about some of the issues financially and budgetary, tax-wise, everything going on here in the state of Kansas. We'll chat with him for the 7 o'clock hour. Also in the 8 o'clock hour, Lana Gordon. She's with the Kansas Department of Labor. She'll be joining us about the new work initiatives happening at the statewide level through the Kansas government and what we get to look forward to from there, some of the opportunities and what we may see coming out of the state right now, trying to incentivize some of the work incentives, some of the opportunities that we have and ways that we can actually get back on track and maybe increase some of the unemployment rates, or not increase the unemployment, lower the unemployment, increase the labor force here in the state of Kansas. So lots to get to today, lots to talk about, but I do want to open it up to you this morning, 316-721-8255. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well this morning. If you'd like to check that out, you just go to facebook.com/1480KQAM. I want to start off with something, though, kind of fun-ish, kind of concerning, though, as well. And first off, I have to say, as usual, thank you. Thank you for listening, for watching the show on TV, for listening on the radio, listening on the Facebook Live or on the TuneIn app or on our website, KQAMradio.com, wherever you may be tuning in. We appreciate it very much. Radio itself is an interesting beast, for sure. Radio itself is a very difficult beast to try and tackle on a daily basis, and it is changing. It's ever-changing. I mean, technology's changing, and the way that media is getting out there, the way that news and information is getting out there, the way that people's opinions are getting out there, whether it is social media through Facebook and Twitter, through radio shows, whether it's information through to online somewhere, or whether it's actually on the radio or on TV. The technology and the media platforms are changing dramatically. If you notice, there are different media outlets now that are strictly on websites and on social media and on different internet platforms. And radio itself is changing. Talk radio is changing. And some say the talk radio is going to be dead and it's going to go to the wayside and that people aren't going to listen to it anymore and that people just aren't interested in talk radio anymore. And I say that's not true in any way, shape, or form. I think that when it comes down to it and people want information and they want talk and they want news and they want entertainment and they want these sorts of, that they're going to go to the radio because the majority of it is still live. The majority of it is still right there at your fingertips, whether it is on your phone, through the radio station's webpage, or through their social media app, or through a Facebook Live feed, or whether it is actually turning on the dial on your radio in your car. But regardless, it's going to always be there because it's always going to be live. It will be there for the information that you are looking for. I think, honestly, and thank God I'm not in music radio as much as I enjoy music radio as well, but if anything is going to die out, I believe personally it's going to be music radio. Why? Because if you want to listen to a song, then you have an entire iPod full of music that you can listen to with as much of the songs from that band that you enjoy, rather than just the one and then moving on to something else. personally. That's my take on it, which is why I enjoy talk radio so much. But as the technology always continues to try and evolve and change a little bit, there's a new story that came out of iNews out of the UK about how over 50% of listeners have now switched from radios to the online social platforms. The 50% milestone has been broken, and now the government in the United Kingdom is looking at changing and turning off altogether the analog FM radio signals in the United Kingdom. I mean, I never thought that we would get to that point. I mean, I know it's changing, but I always thought it would kind of be there. But is this the change? Is this the beginning of the potential end to talk radio? Is this the potential end to any type of radio, whether it's talk radio or music radio? Is this the potential end to that? The radio industry in the United Kingdom passed a milestone with digital listening reaching a new record share of 50.9%, which is up from 47.2% a year ago, according to their latest study. The landmark will trigger the government review into whether the analog FM radio signal should be switched off altogether. Last year, Norway became the first country to end any type of national radio broadcast on the FM dial altogether. According to the BBC, the switch is premature. The BBC said it would be premature to switch off any of the FM signals, but it could cut off drivers with analog car radios and disenfranchise older wireless listeners. Just imagine that. Imagine the difference that would be in society, where there would be no radio in any way, shape, or form, to where it would strictly be all online because they finally just turn it off. They flip off the switch to any of the AM or the FM signals. Now, we are on AM and FM here for KQAM and for many of our stations, and and that's great, because if they turned off one or the other, we'd have the other opportunity for that. But it's crazy to think about, isn't it? So we need to say thank you again, as we usually like to do, to you, the listener, who actually still tunes in to the AM and to the FM, and tunes in along with that to the wireless and to the online social media and to the TV broadcast as well. We are just about all over the place, so that way, no matter where we may evolve to, we're there, and we're trying to stay there. Because this information that we try and talk about, the entertainment that we try and bring, the information, the politics, the covering of issues, it's important. It's important. And we enjoy what we do. And it's important for the advertisers and for the clients and for the sponsors that like to advertise with not only the show but the station as a whole, to be able to promote their business while at the same time supporting what we do. So we thank you for that and appreciate it. But it's really interesting. Norway already turning off the FM signals. The United Kingdom looking at it. I mean, the government looking at even voting on turning off the analog FM signals altogether and saying, you know what, we're just going to go straight up social media. Now, I don't know how much talk radio is actually out in the United Kingdom. I know that there are a few. The BBC actually has a few different talk shows, and they have a few different programs like that, but I don't know how much. I don't know how big of an industry that actually is. Many of the talk shows that we have here in the United States, nationally syndicated, many of them aren't even allowed into the United Kingdom. Because, I mean, of course, we're the crazy conservative right-wing rednecks that just live in America, and, we're just a bunch of podunks. But nonetheless, I think they have some type of industry or some type of market for talk radio. I don't know. I just don't know how big or how important it actually is. So there it is. Kind of an interesting story to start off the day today, as talk radio, FM, AM signals may be in jeopardy with the evolution of this. Now, I don't see us going away, because if that does change, then what's going to happen? We're going to be going towards social media. We're going to be going towards other outlets, which is why we do what we do. But just imagine a world to where you wouldn't be able to turn on your AM or your FM radio signal, and that would be gone altogether. Imagine that. That would be a crazy, crazy world to live in, and I can't fathom that actually ever happening here in the United States because of how big of an industry that radio actually is. But nonetheless, times are changing. Industry is changing. What could potentially be that way? Now, that doesn't say anything to our listenership here in the United States, because listenership in the U.S., when it comes to even especially talk radio, and in the Wichita area here, by the way, the listenership goes up and up and up and up and up. Viewership goes up and up and up and up and up. We've seen rating increases quite dramatically over the last couple of years here just for our station, which we appreciate, again, very much so. We've seen interest in it more so than I've ever seen here in this area. Nationally, radio itself is still a very, very, very large market, and you get multiple millions of people listening. So radio is not going to go anywhere here in the United States anytime soon, but it is changing elsewhere. And it's really fascinating to kind of watch and see. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We have lots to get to. There's a lot of information today when it comes to some of the election updates as different candidates doing different things, choosing different running mates that we do have some information on. We'll get to you today. Also, an opinion piece out of the Wichita Eagle that I thought was absolutely fascinating as they have kind of taken a shot at Democrats with the upcoming midterm elections for the state of Kansas. We'll read that story as well. Plus, we do have some updates when it comes to the Second Amendment and guns, and I'll get your thoughts on that probably after the bottom of the hour news and talking about some of the latest gun advocacy here in the state of Kansas, along with some of the other surrounding states for us as well. So a big show today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of stuff to get to, and I want to hear from you today as well. 18 minutes past the hour. Let's take a break. Starting off a brand new day. It is a Thursday, baby. Let's have a little fun today. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, 24 minutes past the hour. Great to have you along today, starting off a brand new day. Let's kick it into gear, baby. Let's have a little fun. Let's get her done. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Message on Facebook. Andy, I think you're missing the point of the article. Well, I don't know. I mean, it says right here, government looking to turn off FM analogs altogether. Now, I'm not saying that the radio broadcasts are going away. I mean, it even says in there, I mean, it's going to be more quote-unquote competitive with the online market because of technology going that way. Podcast booms, obviously. BBC Director of Radio and Education said we're fully committed to digital and growing its audiences. But along with other broadcasters, we've already said this would be premature to switch off FM. Smart speaker radio listening, another new digital way of going. The new digital feature includes listening through DAB sets, or DAB sets. Voice-controlled speaker and online. For the first time, the audience gets a greater than analog platform, AM or FM. According to CEO of Digital Radio UK, this is a landmark moment for the radio industry and for listeners alike. The digital transition is good news for radio and is helping our industry compete more effectively in the digital age. So look, I mean, the platform, whether it's the music, whether it's the talk, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to be done in a little bit different formats, a little bit different ways for the quote-unquote competitiveness of the market. You just got to stay on top of the way technology is going. I know there are some that like the more traditional ways of having the nice classical FM box in your home or in your car and just turning that on, and all the power to you. And I don't see that going away, especially here in the United States. But many are going to try and go towards more of the online side or the digital side or the smart speaker side or whatever they want to go with there. So it'll be fascinating to see where technology goes, but kind of a fun conversation. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, 25 minutes past the hour. Let's go to the phones. Take a call. Line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How are you?
Well, as privatization goes, they've already done a crazy job with, just like, for example, here in the Sedgwick County, they've done a privatization of the county jail to where people in there got to pay for everything, exorbitantly high prices to make a phone call and anything else. And I suspect even the state prison is the same way, that they probably got to pay for everything in there. And
no,
I'll do the privatization.
I don't think they have to. I don't think they have to pay anything for the state corrections facilities at all. I mean, I did a tour through there, and now they can earn things. They can work in order to earn a little bit of cash, and then be able to buy things or to be able to do things like that. But I don't think they have to pay for things like that. Now, for the county, you're right.
Medical, they got to pay for dental, all kind of stuff. They got to pay for.
Well, they can, but honestly, is that necessarily a bad thing?
Well, I mean, you know, when you're in jail, of course, you're kind of limited to money. And then, of course, we've seen recently you have people who were put in there who didn't even do a crime. So, I mean, I don't know if they get, I mean, I guess just recently they just decided to pass a law to say that you could even get compensated for the time that you've been in jail.
Wrongly. Yeah. I mean, if you got convicted wrongly and they find out later that you were convicted wrongly and you had spent some time in prison, then you're right. Then they do get compensated for that. And that's a new law the Governor Collier just signed the last couple of days, and that they've been working on that for about a year or so, and they finally came out with the proper details and got that bill done. But honestly, I don't see a problem with charging inmates to some degree. Now, obviously, outlandishly to where, it just puts them farther and farther and farther into that to where they come out and have to, commit another crime to try and compensate for it. But I do agree personally with, the charging of the phone calls in our county jail, or even if we did that in state facilities, just because of the fact that, if there are ways...
it's not like it's punishment. It's just a matter of profiting. I mean, you got people who are profiting from all this.
Well, it's not, it's not profiting. It's not... Wait, hold on. It's
privatization and profiting from people's...
There's not a privatization of the county jail, though. It's still a county jail.
I'm not saying the jail is run privately, but I'm saying all of the other things around it is being used by private people who are charging money and making profit.
Well, they're providing a service. Do they not expect to get a profit or get some kind of compensation for the service they're providing?
It's not a service like you have a choice. I mean, it's almost like Obamacare. I mean, they didn't give you a choice for that, did they?
Well, you don't really. You're not supposed to have a whole lot of choices if you're in prison. I don't know what kind of choices that we should be given if we're in prison.
That must mean that the whole state is a prison, and therefore a prison state or police state, because there's fewer choices for even people who aren't in prison.
Well, I agree with you there. We need choices if you're not in prison. I mean, we live in a free market to where we're supposed to have competition. We're not supposed to have any type of monopolies, but we're talking about people that are in prison, that are in jail, for example, like the county jail. And I think that we should charge them for the usage of the jail cell and or, making phone calls or using different services. Because, I mean, if we can take some of that tax burden off the taxpayer money, subsidizing people who have broken the law and taking care of them while they're in jail, and we're able to take some of that relief off of them and put it onto the person who committed something bad or did a bad deed, then yeah, I'm all for that. And I completely agree with that. And if there's a business providing a service within the jail, then yeah, let's charge for that type of service because, well, it's a company that's providing a service that's looking for some type of profit on the end of it so they can continue to provide the service.
The thing about profit type prisons and things, they always looking for new clients, and they liable to motivate some people to say, "Hey, why don't you get us some more clients?" And so they'll just do extra work to put more people in there who otherwise wouldn't be in there.
Well, sure, Scott, I appreciate it, but there's a difference though between a for-profit private prison and a government prison or a public prison with private entities or private resources that are within the prison. There's a difference there. And the county jail is not a for-profit private prison or a private jail. It just has resources in there like a phone line that's run by a private company. There's a big difference there.
It's time for Reason.
If this is a victory for Democrats thinking they have the momentum again, then let them have it. Because that's as far as they're going to go. In a state that was already won by Democrats, already predominantly blue, in a state where the Republican did not want to embrace current Republican trends. If you're not going to do that, then you're not going to win. End of story. It's very simple.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. It is a Thursday morning. Good morning to you. Let's Carpe Diem all over this place. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Had a bunch of calls on the line over the break, dropped off during the break. You're more than welcome to call back. We'll get right to you. 316-721-8255. Interesting conversation, though, and I appreciate the call from Scott. But remember, there is a big difference between a for-profit privatized prison, which I'm personally okay with as well, but that's not what we have right now. We're talking about even a privatized prison in the state, which we need to remember the details of it. It's not a privatized prison. It is a privatized contract to build the prison, but it is still just a state corrections facility, just like everything else that we have. It would just be built by a private contractor in that sense. So there is a lot of different details, but like this, the county jail in no way, shape, or form is a privatized entity. It is still a county jail run by the county government, but there are obviously phone lines in there from a private company in which we would want to charge. And again, I'm all for charging inmates for whatever we need to, for the room and board of the jail cell, for the food, or for the phone lines, or for whatever else in there, because, well, I mean, come on, they committed a crime and they need to be able to pay for it. And maybe, just maybe, if we, rack up some stuff on there, and then we can actually have them go to work, and like some of the state corrections facilities that we have, where they can actually have opportunities to work and make things and do things and make a little cash from that, then we can teach some proper work ethic, and we can teach the quality of a good day's work and be able to put that in and then show that we can actually pay things off. And hopefully they can take those types of skills out with them, so that way we don't have to worry about them later on and actually returning. I don't know if you're aware or not, but our state corrections facilities programs that we have are some of the best in the entire nation. And I know that there was this whole movement of, we hate Governor Sam Brownback and he's a terrible individual. But the President Trump administration thankfully recognized the fact that we have some really, really, really good state corrections facilities here in the state of Kansas, and some of the programs that we have, so that way we don't see a returning of people back into prison thereafter. And Governor Brownback, along with being the ambassador at large for international religious freedom, is also being tapped on how he created, because he helped craft the programs that we have in the state for our corrections facilities, and they're looking at that on what they could do as an example at the federal level. Now, I know, again, the progressives are just going to hate that, and they're going to fume because of that, and it's going to set their hair on fire, and they're going to go nuts, because how dare we look for Governor Brownback for any examples or building of an idea in any way, shape, or form. But we have to admit when good things are actually done, and that was a good thing that was done. And it was done by Governor Sam Brownback. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on all of this and more. Line number one, good morning. What's your name?
Morning, it's Deacon.
What's happening, Deacon? How are you?
Oh, it's a beautiful day out here.
Absolutely, every day.
Hey, I'm from North Carolina, and we have places where when you're driving down the road, you'll see a sign that says "No stopping between signs, inmates at work," and then you'll see a guy with a shotgun, about 20 inmates in the ditch swinging sling blades, and then a fellow with a rifle.
Sure.
And those guys are out there doing a job that needs to be done for the state, and they're putting in work.
Sure.
I think that we need to reinstitute the penal farms, where if any of these offenders that can't go out in the community and work, because the municipality I work for, we work inmates. We have them out here in the community, and they're putting in 7-8 hour day, and they're earning 68 cents a day for them to go on their books, but the rest of that money goes to paying for their room and board.
Sure.
But,
no, absolutely. And I don't see the problem with that. Why don't we do that anymore? Why don't we see, what they call them before, the quote unquote chain gangs like that? Like you said, you drive through and you see everybody working on the side of the road, whether it is, swinging a hammer, or whether it's picking up litter and trash off the side of the road, or whether it's cleaning off spray paint of graffiti that people thought it was really cute to do on side of buildings or walls. And, we start doing these things, do the physical labor, get them out doing things. And, they do. They make 50 cents a day, 60 cents a day, $1 a day sort of thing that helps pay for a little bit of their room and board when it comes to their expenses as an inmate, and we teach them the value of a good day's work.
Right, and the ones that can't be taken out of the community, the violent offenders, the sex offenders, those guys, reinstitute the penal farm where they grow their own food.
Sure. Why not?
Have these guys, because we get guys that they bring out from the correctional facility to work with us that have never worked a day in their life.
Sure.
Don't know what a day's work is. So, part of what I look at is, yes, we're putting these guys to work and we're getting the day's work out of them, but we're also mentoring these guys.
Exactly.
Hey, you don't have to go back to doing what you were doing. You can actually, at the end of the day, go home to your house, with a feeling of I've done something. I have done something with my life today.
And that's why it is so good to see the programs that we have in our state corrections facilities here, because they do go to work. We do have the opportunities. There are private companies that actually that build a warehouse in the facility. Look, I went to the Hutchinson Correction Facility, what was it, a few months ago, last fall, whatever it was, and went and got to tour it. And they have a business there to where you can actually go and you can work, but you got to be at a certain level within there that allows you to have a little bit of that free reign to work in there. And they make, $1 a day, $1.50 a day, depending on what you're at there. Then they have other positions where you could be printing T-shirts, and you could be sewing things. You could be learning these qualities. They have the mentorship program to where you are being mentored, and you can be taught that, a good day's work there, you can make a little money. Not only can you help save up some cash to where you get out, you're in a better position for yourself financially, but then you're also paying for things that you can buy things for yourself. You can do these types of things. You have the mentorship program. And because of these programs that we have, our return rate to the prison facilities in the state are dramatically lower than pretty much any of our surrounding states, which means that we have a success story that we should be using here.
Absolutely. And, some of these companies that have businesses inside the fences, they don't make $1 a day. There's guys making $16 an hour.
Sure.
Showing them, hey, if you learn a skill, if you learn a trade, then when you get out, you don't have to sling dope to get by.
Exactly. I mean, they have the certifications to where you can become a certified plumber or a certified electrician within the prison system. So that way, when you get out, you do have a trait that you can go out and you can get a job and you can actually get back on your feet. That's what we need to be doing. Yes, punish them for what they've done because they've done some terrible things to lead them into that kind of position, but also give them the helping hand that maybe they haven't had structure in their life to help them get back on their feet. And then when we walk out, then we're in a lot better position. And I'm all for the labor of individuals in different prison facilities. And whether it's like here where we have the companies to be able to go into a factory or a warehouse and work, or whether it is the chain gang out on the street doing something, it is teaching a valuable lesson on all fronts. And that's what we have to do in a positive, constructive manner.
Absolutely. And, some of these guys, they don't have an education. They get them their GEDs while they're in there. If you're just sitting on your butt all day, you're going to look for ways to occupy your mind. Mm-hmm. But if you get out there and you get a job and you do some work, then you're not looking at, oh, hey, I'm going to get high. I'm going to sneak stuff in. I'm going to, that guy made me mad today, so I'm going to sharpen up a toothbrush and stab him in the throat.
Right.
That you give them something to do, because the idle hands are the devil's playground.
Exactly. Deacon,
right.
I love him, my friend.
Brother.
Hey, great points. No, I completely agree with you. We see some great opportunities there. And regardless of what you think of Governor Sam Brownback, he started a lot of these initiatives and programs. He started the mentorship program in our state facilities for the state of Kansas. And I think that they've done wonders. I can't wait to go up and do another tour through there again, because it was really a sight to behold. But I am all for that type of labor, that type of mentorship program, that type of hard work, and trying to get people involved. So that way, not only are we punishing for the deeds that they've done, but also trying to get them back on the right track to where they don't repeat the offense again. Phone's lighting up. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Ron, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. My stepdad was a correctional officer in a state penitentiary in Kentucky, and what they did was the trustees out on the farm, they raised their own vegetables, they had hogs, they had cattle. They made it where that the burden to the taxpayer was less by vegetables and meat and stuff like that. And also, my mother worked in a shirt factory all of her life, and so after she retired, the state, what they did was they got a contract with fast food industry.
Okay.
And they made uniforms and gave them a skill, and my mother taught them how to cut cat patterns and use machines and stuff like that. And so she got a little about 6 years she got a retirement from the state, but it did give them, and that's what they need to do, to look for something positive.
Exactly.
And number one, my stepdad told me, he says they need to separate the hardcore from the ones that did something that shouldn't be put in there with the hardcore bunch.
Exactly. There is that separation between the mass murderer that ended up killing 5 different people and that has no value to life, and if you just look at them, then you can just see the darkness in their eyes, sort of thing. And the individual that got busted by for the 4th time speeding 20 miles above the speed limit and had some pot in the back trunk, sort of thing. And did you do something wrong? Did you break the law? Absolutely. But did you do something crazy because you're mentally unstable and you're just going to go snap on somebody? Probably not.
Well, they need to. It's like you said before. We need where they teach them some skills, where that they go out there and they don't have to go to be a day laborer
Sure.
looking for a job. To do.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, if you've never had structure in your life and you ended up doing something bad and you come out again with no qualities in any way, shape, or form, then there's no choice but for you to go back to your old lifestyle. And then guess what? Then we see the return inmates over and over and over and over again. But if you're able to go in and say, yeah, you know what? I committed the crime. I'm obviously here and I'm going to do my time. But I'm going to utilize that to get back on track. I'm going to get to become a certified plumber. I'm going to actually work. I'm going to get, maybe a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 saved up. I can pay for my room and board here so that way I'm not coming out with a big bill. And I have a little bit of money to get back on track with myself. Not to mention I'm going to be certified in a trade to where I can actually get a job. Then just imagine the possibilities and the opportunities that they're going to have to where we're never going to see them come back into that facility again.
Well, my stepdad told me that before they got that program to make those uniforms, the recidivism rate was around 75% in 1 year, the first year after
Wow.
they were out. So after that, they reduced their recidivism considerably.
Sure, absolutely. Ron, I love it. I appreciate it, my friend. Great points. It's an interesting conversation to have, and we haven't had it in a while when it comes to some of our state facilities and how to make our prison system better. I know people panic when they hear the terms private prison just because of the fact that they think that it's going to be, the for-profit, and they're just going to do terrible, horrible things, and then people are going to end up missing. If you ever watched the movie, what was it, The Escape Plan? One of the coolest movies I think I've seen with Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, my action movies. Hate me for all that all you want to, but it was a fantastic movie, and that was kind of the for-profit thing, and that's kind of the mentality that people think of when they think of a for-profit privatized prison. Again, we don't have any of those in the state. And even the one that we had been talking about is not a privatized prison. It's just been privatized for the contracting of the building of the prison, but it would still be run and controlled by the government. So that kind of brings in a whole other level of opportunity and discussion to have as well. Let's go back to the phones, line number 3. Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
Hey, Andy.
Hey,
Hey,
yeah. How's it going?
This is Rick.
What's
Rick
going
from
on?
Hutch.
Rick, what's going on, my friend?
Hey, just calling to offer a little perspective.
Yeah, go for it.
I got kind of sidetracked after Scott called, so I couldn't call right away. But one, you're absolutely right. Lansing, Kansas. I work for the DOC. You know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So everybody knows, Rick, you work with, and actually I appreciate it because you gave me the little bit of the tour through the Hutchinson Correction Facility
Right.
where you're at. And it is so fascinating to watch the programs that you've had and some of the successes that we've seen with these mentorship programs and the work that you guys do up there.
Well, we try. We really do. And like you said, the recidivism rate has come way down. We have other states coming here to see what we're doing.
Sure.
But you are absolutely right about Lansing, and I get sick of the media putting this thing out there that it's a private prison. It is not. Kansas does not want a private prison.
Sure.
Scott was right on that point. They are for profit.
Sure.
But who cares who builds it? I mean, we're trying to get a good product built. The other thing, and we're going to staff it. We're going to rent it. They're the landlords. The roof leaks. They fix the roof. So
Sure.
But the other thing I want to talk about was Scott was saying, well, they have to pay for everything, which is a pretty broad brush. Inmates, they pay for some things, but they don't pay for what they have to have day to day. We feed them, we do their laundry, we turn the lights on, we turn the heat on, all these things. It's the extra things, yes, they do pay for. Now, I know telephone calls are expensive. We agree with that. But when you were there, you saw how tightly we have to control communication because of our population. They're trying to get drugs in. They're trying to escape. They're trying to do gang hits. They're trying to continue their criminal activity through communication. So we we hire a company. It's on a bid process. Sedgwick County Jail does the same thing, that can monitor and record phone calls and emails and things like that.
Sure.
So, yeah, the alternative is they don't get any phone calls. And the other thing is the canteen items, and I think we kind of talked about that when you were up there, was, yeah, you know what, if you want a couple of Snickers bars or you want better tennis shoes or this or that, yeah, you're going to pay for it.
Sure.
And it's not any cheaper than you or me going to Walmart, but we don't owe them a nicer pair of tennis shoes to go out and play basketball. We give them shoes, we give them socks, we give them underwear. Right. So, when you start to say they have to pay for everything, that's way out of bounds.
Exactly. You guys give them the essentials of what they need. If they want to improve it, like you said, and upgrade it to get a better pair of shoes, or to be able to, treat themselves after working all day to a Snickers bar, then you're right. They got to be able to pay for that. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that type of system. And as you mentioned, when it comes to the phone lines, especially with all the security that goes into that, I mean, I remember going through the cell block and one little computer for the entire cell block. And if you wanted to check an email, which was only an email set up by the facility itself, and that's the only interaction you can have in or out. You're not going to be able to get on social media sort of thing. I mean, that stuff costs money to be able to have that type of security, right, which is why you have to freelance it out to a private company to do so. And yeah, heaven forbid that private company actually needs a profit in order to continue to give you that kind of service.
I agree. I mean, and the alternative is you can always write a letter and mail it out. I mean, you don't have a right to the JPay system. I don't.
Sure.
We'll help you contact your attorney, but aside from that, you got to pay for things.
You got to pay for things.
Aren't expected to pay for all that, but
exactly. I love it, Rick. I appreciate you calling in and giving us that insight, my friend. You guys are doing great things up there, and hopefully, as you mentioned, people are still continuing to come in and kind of see what we're doing in Kansas and what we can do to help out some of the other states around us.
All the time.
I love it. Rick, I appreciate that, my friend. Got to take a break, wrapping up hour number one right there. I mean, right there. That's an example of what we're doing in the state of Kansas that is working. That, oh, by the way, Governor Brownback started that a lot of people just don't like to hear, so I'm going to continue to say that. 7 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's take a break, wrap up hour number one. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Back into The Voice of Reason. Love all the phone calls, the big conversation. It's a great one. Let's keep it rolling. When we come back as well, Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute, going to join us in studio for the hour. Got a lot to talk about with the grade scale, the A through F grade scale when it comes to public education. I can only imagine what that's going to look like. Plus some of the ideas that we're actually moving forward with in a positive way that the KPI, Kansas Policy Institute, has been working on for a long time. So good news there. We're moving in the right direction. Again, I ask Blue Wave, where are you? I can't find you. You're like the wind. We may try and feel you, but we can't see you anywhere. Maybe because it's kind of false and it's not actually happening. Ha! It's funny how that works, right? We're moving in the right direction. It may be slow, it may be painstaking, but that's because of the hard work that you and I are actually putting in. Hour number two, The Voice of Reason coming up here. Lots to get to today. It is a Thursday. Stay tuned.
It's time for Reason.
Do you think that there would be a federal government in this administration right now if we have more states, whether it's Kansas or anywhere in the country, say, you know what, I believe that I'm going to go ahead and expand my Medicaid program and I'm going to look for federal aid in order to make that happen? What do you think they're going to say? As we're trying to limit some of these social programs with a Republican majority in both chambers and a Republican presidency, what do you think is going to happen?
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about.
Don't get fooled again.
All right, welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting, TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. What's up? Welcome in. It is a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration has again begun. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's Carpe Diem all over this place. Enjoy and have a little fun. What do you say? 8 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we got a great show lined up for you. Coming up in hour number 3, Lana Gordon from the Kansas Department of Labor. She'll be joining us along with another guest in studio for a little bit at 8 o'clock. But in studio now, we do this. We try and do it about once a month or so when he's in town with the Sentinel KSMO along with Kansas Policy Institute, Mr. Dave Trabert. Dave, how are you, my friend?
Good, Andy. Good to be here.
Great to have you back in here. It's been a little bit, and I tell you what, it's never ending in the state of Kansas. Even after the legislative session, it's never over.
No, it's not.
It never is. How is the Sentinel doing, by the way, before we do anything else?
Other than losing Denidre Herbert, the Sentinel's doing great.
Yeah.
We're very happy for her with her new opportunity, but we're sure going to miss her.
Absolutely. And for those that didn't hear, Denidre Herbert to leaving the Sentinel, and that announcement really yesterday with the official announcement with her leaving that and now becoming the media director for the Chris Kobach governor's campaign. So congratulations to her. She's going to do a fantastic job there. And now when I need to get Chris on the show, I'm just going to have to reach out to her. So there we go. I'm really excited for her. I think she's going to do absolutely fantastic. But other than that, I mean, you guys are still growing. I mean, the listenership. Actually, it was funny. I was talking with Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, nationally syndicated show on the Second Amendment, and he actually used your guys' story on his show talking about the crime rate that's gone down at Kansas University after the Carry On Campus that you guys did about a month or so ago, and he was using that on his platform, and he was able to give you guys some credit on there. So
great,
fantastic,
great,
really great information on there. From the Kansas Policy Institute's perspective, a lot of things happening. Before we get into some of the things we're working on now, I got to ask you your take on the wrap up and the ending of our legislative session 2018. Did we do anything worthwhile this year?
Yes, we did.
We did.
Yes, we stopped some bad stuff from happening. Sure. There was yet another attempt to expand Medicaid that was blocked. There was multiple attempts to try to shut down the state's only school choice program, the tax credit scholarship. That was stopped again. The big thing, the education funding situation, that was not a good thing. It's spending money unnecessarily.
Sure.
And not just because of the tax implications that I don't care what anyone says, it will lead to a tax increase. They might be able to skate by for a year or two. But if you still want to fund highways, I mean, if you don't want to do I know it's controversial, but if you don't want to do the highway transfers, I mean, when people are saying we can do this without a tax increase, what they aren't saying is we'll keep doing the highway transfers. We will keep that sales tax high. We will not put everything into capers that we're supposed to put in. And eventually, we won't have the ending balance we're supposed to have. But other than that...
then it'll be fantastic.
So that's bad enough. The real crime is shame, because it's not a crime, it's shame.
Should be a crime.
Because it's not going to help the kids.
Sure.
No matter how much money you pour into schools, it will not help kids get better because there's no accountability. A lot of legislators claim, well, we got accountability. Not really.
Well, and that was the talking point by Governor Collier, was saying that this one allows the accountability because we did set a standard. We did try and set this curriculum. We did try and do this while we signed this bill.
No. What they did was set goals. And that's what happens if you don't hit the goal. Nothing.
They're going to take the funding away? I highly doubt that.
No, who writes the refund check if you don't hit the goal?
Sure.
What happens to, what takes place? I mean, the theory behind that is, well, if they lose their accreditation, then, they have to go before the education committee and explain themselves.
No, boy.
Well, that's going to accomplish anything. But the State Board of Education is making sure that'll never happen because instead of accrediting schools, they're shifting now to accrediting districts. So you can have a really bad, crappy school in your district. It doesn't really matter because as long as the district gets accredited, and by the way, I called the Department of Education and said, when was the last time someone lost their accreditation? They didn't know.
They didn't know.
They didn't know.
Hasn't
So even
happened
when
in
it
a
was at
while.
the building level, no, we've never lost accreditation. Or not never, but not in recent memory. These are, I mean, they're well intended. You know, setting a goal, we want to be here. That's not accountability. We've had goals and targets forever.
Sure.
Never hit them. And nothing ever happened. The only thing that happens is that generations of kids keep getting left behind, and the achievement gaps are getting worse. So we need to have some real accountability, something with consequences, with rewards for gains and consequences that allow the student-focused consequences that allow them to escape. If they're not going to get the education they deserve in the public school, then give them an opportunity to go somewhere else and get it.
Mm-hmm. Big dollar amount when we see this. I mean, we signed the bill, and we can talk about the entire budget in a little bit as well, but we did increase spending close to $1 billion at the end of this session, which we didn't raise any taxes. I mean, I'm starting to see deja vu from a while ago. We raised spending, didn't compensate that way for taxes.
Oh, but we did raise taxes.
Oh, we did?
Oh, we did raise taxes. We just don't want to call it a tax increase, Andy.
Well, that's true. That is true.
The federal tax reform that restricts the amount you can people who deduct, who itemize.
Sure.
The deductions are restricted. There was legislation. The Senate passed it.
Right in the last days, really.
The Senate passed it in the last days. It was slow walked through the conference committee process for a week, so that by the time it got there, it was down to it's this or nothing. And the House didn't pass it. It
tied at 59, didn't it?
Tied at 59 with a handful of legislators not there to vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's another subject.
Yeah.
But tied at 59. So by taking no action, the House of Representatives forced a $105 million tax increase on citizens annually. That number is in the consensus revenue estimate. It's a real number. And that's just the piece they estimate to be on individuals. There's also a big tax increase coming on business. They can't quite get their arms around it, but that could be as much.
So we can sum up this session by increased spending by $1 billion and increased spending because we didn't actually change any type of tax code to be able to itemize something when we actually file our taxes.
Yeah, you know, if Ronald Reagan was looking at what's taken place in the Kansas legislature on the spending side,
he'd have a heart attack.
Well, you know, he would, you know, and some people would say, well, they're spending like drunken sailors, but Reagan would say, no, that's not being fair to sailors because they were spending their own money.
Exactly. That's true. Now, the cumulative price for the education, they say it's, $530 million. Cumulative every single year. I've heard a conflicting number where it's close to $1 billion or just over $1 billion. From your guys' perspective, do you have kind of a generalized number on what this actually is when it comes to the spending?
Well, first of all, the 525 sits on top of the $293 million they passed last year.
So we're already at close to 800.
We're at $818 million already. And so, yeah, you could say, I mean, if you look at over a 5-year period, how much more will you spend? Sure, it's a bigger number because of the cumulative effect. But in 5 years, we'll be spending almost and probably $1 billion more because that's the state piece.
Sure.
What's not necessarily factored into that is what local schools will do because when schools get more money from the state, they have greater authority to go out and raise local property taxes, and that's what they did after Montoy. Mm-hmm. So there's an unknown factor there. It's not direct, not a direct proportional because there are. That gets into the weeds. But there could be more coming, and it won't help kids.
Sure. Let's go ahead and take a break. 17 minutes past the hour. Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. We have a lot to get to this hour, and this is just touching the iceberg as of right now. We have a lot to discuss when we get into the nitty-gritty on this, but potential to do a grade score on this and some ideas of what we can do to start making this better, along with taking a look at the legislative session. Plus, I don't know if you remember or not, but about the middle of the session, State Representative Christy Williams actually wrote a decent piece talking about the property tax issue on that I think would play in a factor on this as well. So we'll talk about that when we come back as well. Your thoughts and calls, 316-721-8255. Lots to get to today. It is a Thursday on The Voice of Reason. Stay right here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. 23 minutes past the hour. Great to have you along today. Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute, rocking with us here for a little bit here for the 7 o'clock hour. And we teased a little bit, but I had to bring it back up. State Representative Christy Williams wrote a piece right at the end of January this year as the session was kicking off and as we were talking about some of the educational funding. And I thought it was a brilliant piece talking about the option for the local property taxes as a tool for finance for the education that many of the local school districts really haven't capitalized on or utilized. And if they're complaining about lack of funding and they didn't have the funds from the state level that they thought was efficient, that they can go to the local community in the area and be able to raise the property tax in that sense. And we see it a little bit when it comes to some of the bonds that we see go on the ballot once in a while. And this year, actually, only 2 of the 11 bonds last November actually passed, which really shows that people were kind of frustrated with this. But if we were able to lower some of the spending at the state level and focus more on some of the local level, which more people want the money to stay locally, and if they really supported this type of mentality, then that was the way to go, and that was the proposal that she was asking for. I thought it was a great idea. Have we utilized that? Because now I think that they've seen the opportunity to not only continue to fight for more money at the state level, but then also then come in at the property tax level, and then we get to see taxes raised on both sides.
Yeah. And Andy, that's there's a dual purpose. The resistance to what Representative Williams is talking about has a dual purpose. On one side, it's they don't want to have blame for it.
Sure.
They'd rather say, "Oh, it's not us raising your tax; it's someone else." It all comes out of the same pocket, okay? Right. But the bigger issue is that if you what they want to keep the pressure on to raise tax at the state level, because then they can still raise the tax on the local level. And in some cases, it becomes automatic. They don't have to announce that they're doing something.
It's just going to happen.
At some point, it gets up there. And that there's a lot more at stake. You know, the pressure, they want it to, the focus needs to be on those evil, mean, cheapskate legislators rather than are we doing what we can? Because the money all counts. It's fungible. The Supreme Court in 2014 even said all funds finally need to be considered. Now, they've backtracked on that because they're dealing with a more friendly legislature, so they're trying to change the rules again. I mean, working with this Supreme Court is like trying to play board games with my granddaughter.
Right.
You know, the rules keep changing, so someone's going to win.
Oh, sure.
But she's gotten over that now.
they usually grow out of that unless they're kind of on the left side of the progressive aisle. Then it kind of leads a little bit later into life.
Well, yeah. Then they kind of it kind of resurrects itself. But yeah, that was a great point that Representative Williams raised.
Sure. Absolutely. Let's talk about a proposal. And this came out actually from Secretary of State Chris Kobach, which he's gotten under heat left and right. Every time he opens his mouth, he gets under attack by the left-wing media. But running for governor and making some proposals when it comes to education, which a lot of people have liked. Talk about one of the proposals that he's talked about that you guys really been advocating for a long time.
Yeah, he was, and I wasn't there when he did this. It was at the Pachyderm Club in Wichita last Friday. He was asked about school choice, and he said, well, Kansas Policy Institute has done some really good work and come up with some ideas on a unique way of doing that. And what we've been talking to legislators about for a couple of years was trying to inject some real accountability into the system and create a system of rewards. First of all, you grade schools. I mean, the state of Kansas has a report card system. Every state has something. They do state assessments, and they have a way of putting labels on it. But in most cases, those labels are, you don't understand it. What does approaching standard mean? Is level 1 good or bad? It turns out in the case of Kansas, level 1 is the worst level. Kind of counterintuitive. So what do these things mean? So what about 18 states have done already over the years is apply labels that everybody understands.
Sure.
A, B, C, D, and F. We get that.
I can only guess that what we're at.
Well, we don't have but the point is you put a label, you grade the schools based on their performance.
Sure.
And the concept is if you improve a letter grade, and it doesn't matter whether you improve from an F to a D as a building or from a B to an A, because you want to reward improvement.
Exactly.
You're not going to move from an F to an A overnight. There's a lot of issues, and you don't want to just have rewards based on getting everybody to the same level. So You incentivize improvement on one side by saying if you improve a letter grade, then everybody gets a bonus.
Sure.
Or the teachers or everybody in the school, that's legislative prerogative. But if you're an F school, and the legislature would be in charge of devising the formula, if you're an F school, then the kids in that building are allowed to go somewhere else, take their state money with them, and go somewhere else to get an education, better opportunity. That could be another public school. It could be a private school.
Wait a second. So if the school's doing bad at educating the children to where they're not learning what they need to, you give them an option to go somewhere else to actually get educated and give them the ability to actually go and do something, somewhere else to actually learn something.
Exactly. And it's not that the school's doing bad. It's because you don't want it to be about finger pointing. It's just for whatever reason. It could be well beyond the control of the people in the building because of the bureaucracy at the district level, at the state level. It's about empowering this student. It's not about assessing blame. It's not about punishing anyone. It's student focused. Our job is to get this kid educated, and if they're not getting it here, we're going to let them go somewhere else. And what that does is tell the district, you guys figure this out.
Right.
If you don't like school choice, educate the kids.
Right.
And it also, because you did a segment earlier on prisons and recidivism. You look at the education level of so many people in prison. The people, if you don't get a good education, you're not going to be able to get a job. You're going to be much more likely to end up in the social service system and in the judicial system. We have to get kids educated. And so if it means we need to let them go somewhere else, then that's what we do to educate the kids.
What a crazy concept. Let's take a bottom of the hour break. Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. Imagine that. If you don't think your kid's getting educated in the school, they can go to another school. I don't know why that would be even controversial, but nonetheless, of course, they don't like the empowerment of the student, just like, mostly in the Democrat Party and the progressives. They don't like the people being empowered because we should probably just follow leadership and get in line. Stop talking and get in line. I'm seeing a trend here. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Lots more to get to. This is The Voice of Reason.
When a headline just isn't enough,
Is that all you got?
it's time to wake up the right way.
All right.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, 1480 AM and 1025 FM, KQAM.
There it is. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. 7:35 is the time. Great to have you along today. Good morning. Welcome in. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink. Dave, when you first started coming in here, actually, I'd always have my energy drink in here with me. I have not had an energy drink in, I want to say, like 6-8 months. I guess that's a good thing. It's healthy.
I never thought you needed it. Obviously, you don't need an energy drink, Andy. You just have a lot of natural energy.
Natural energy. Well, that natural energy doesn't quite show at 4 a.m., but it takes a little bit. I do get better at it little by little. That's right. Welcome in 316-721-8255. We have a caller on the line. We'll get to you in just a second as well. But we were talking off the air a little bit, and just about the grade scale and just the mindset of why we would think it's a bad idea to say that if there is a school that's not performing well and not getting the grades, not teaching the curriculum that they need, not having a standard, that you wouldn't be allowed to take your kid to another place. When it comes down to it, it is about the education of the child, and you, the parent that's seeing progress or not seeing progress, that has a choice and an option to say, you know what, I'm going to take my kid elsewhere. Let's throw another layer onto that as well, though, and let's say the argument that we've heard is say, well, it really goes back to the family and the home life and that sort of thing. So even if the school is there and may not be performing well, that also falls on to the parent. So really, you shouldn't have that choice or move around, because it's really not the school's fault. It's really the parent's fault and the home life's fault, which there is some justification to that as well.
Yeah, and Andy, when we started looking at this, because while what we were talking in the last segment, what Chris Kobach had been proposing, that's obviously not been passed into law. And we'd been working for years trying to get legislators to be more transparent and force transparency on schools so that parents can understand how they're really performing. And so we've launched our own A through F grading project. And all we're doing is translating the state assessment scores using their data and their descriptions, just translating that into an A through F grade for every building. And some educators believe that can't be fairly done, that you cannot assign a letter grade to a building for a lot of reasons, like you mentioned, they can't control for family life. They can't control for this. It's not fair. It will draw attention to it. And I think that there are some legitimate concerns there.
Sure.
But here's the rub. The schools have no problem using performance on those state assessments to sue us for more money.
So we can't give them the choice if the home life is bad, but at the same time, they're doing bad at school because they don't have enough money.
It's the look. If you can't put this, I mean, the Supreme Court says adequacy is determined when schools have adequate funding so that students can meet these standards.
Right.
What are these standards? When the Supreme Court said roughly 25% of kids aren't meeting standard, that was a direct reference to performance on the state assessment test. 27% of kids were below grade level in math, I think English, and 28% below in math. That was a direct reference to that. They were always talking about, and there's charts in the Supreme Court opinion about performance on the state assessment by certain districts. So you can't say on one hand it's not fair to put a grade on that performance because it can be misinterpreted, and then turn around and say, but look, see, this means this performance on this same test means we don't have enough money. It is absurd. So I understand that there's some concerns about that. But as long as they're going to use those state assessments to sue us for more money, there has to be validity in the performance according to the schools. So it's reasonable that parents have a better understanding with a label they all understand, A, B, C, D, F.
Exactly. And I'm sure some of them would be, I don't know what's lower than an F, an F minus?
No, it's just, we don't do pluses and minuses. It's just... And it's all it's doing is taking something like, for example, the state assessment is broken out into 4 levels, and it kind of boggles the mind. Level 1 is the worst.
Sure.
Usually, so level 1 means you're below grade level.
Mm-hmm.
So we assigned an F to scores that are in level 1. It's all the data that just comes to us from the Department of Ed. Level 4. Is you are on track to be college and career ready. You have excellent understanding of the material, and you don't need any kind of remedial training. Okay, that's an A. Level 3, the next one down, is you have effective understanding and you don't need remedial training. Okay, that's a B. Level 2 is at grade level, but still needs a lot more or varying degrees of training to be on track. It's just a basic understanding. So the bottom half of level 2 is a D. The top half of level 2 is a C. That's
easy enough.
It. That's it.
That's very simple.
And then it's, if you get an A, it's 4 points. A B is 3 points, just like any grade point average. There's English language arts and math, 2 subjects. We break it out between low income and not low income.
Sure.
And so every grade tested gets 4 letter grades. And then you just add up the points and come up with a grade point average. That's how it's very simple. It's very transparent.
It may be a little complicated for some that actually just say, we need more money. Yeah, they may not quite grasp something like that, but we'll try. We'll continue to try and explain that to them. Let's take a phone call. Go ahead and put a headset on here so you can hear them. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, caller number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. This is Sean.
Sean, what's happening, sir?
Well, you're on a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and I know we've discussed this in the past, but I do come from a long family lines of educators. I'm not an educator myself, but my wife is, and both sides of our families have education in their bloodline.
Sure.
So that being said, I think we agree 100%, but for different reasons on the subject of funding. Funding is not going to, more money is not going to solve the problem that we have in our schools. However, I believe that it is more of a social problem than it is a funding problem. And I'm against giving another dime to the school system until 100% of the money that gets put in actually goes into a classroom directly, not indirectly, not playing with numbers, not, skewing things to make it look like it goes into the classroom. But that being said, economics, there's studies out there that say, low income has a direct correlation to poor success in school and then later in life. And I think that is true. It's a self-perpetuating problem that I don't know that we can necessarily fix. But
sure.
The problems that we've got in a lot of our low-performing schools tend to be, like I said, they're in low-income areas, but they kind of have reaped what they sowed. They have set low expectations for themselves and their children. They've taken no initiative and personal responsibility for their child's education. They ship it off to the government school and expect them to just do it all for them. And that's a really a dangerous thing, and no amount of money is going to fix that. Because if little Johnny isn't told he actually has to go to school every day, we can't hold the teachers or even the school building responsible for the lack of success of that student. And it's very dangerous when we start equating test scores to the quality of education that's being offered. For example, my wife is in a Title I school in Wichita where she teaches. Very transient. Students come and go. The students that are there, tardiness is rampant, and just absenteeism is through the roof. Parents don't show up for any activities after school, conferences, etc.
It's heartbreaking,
unless
isn't
there
it?
is food involved. So now the schools have to bribe the parents to even show up. So they're not showing up because they really give a darn about their little Johnny's success in school. They're doing it because they get a free meal. But, the school has to show that, 90% of the kids' parents showed up, So how do we do that? We spend money to bribe them to come in. We haven't changed anything. We haven't accomplished anything, but we spent more money, and we are going to get the same results. But these parents are getting exactly what they ask for.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't send your kids to school, they're not going to get educated. So more money is just going to sit there and get spent and not used wisely. So I think we have to be very careful with this grading system because I don't think it's a gradable thing. And my kids go to school out in Garden Plain, and they're not Title I. They finally got themselves out of Title I status several years ago. It's under great leadership of Tracy Bourne out there is the superintendent. He's done fantastic things. I can't say enough about him. He's retiring after this year. Mindy Bruce is taking over for him. We have a lot of high expectations, and we're excited about her being there. But here's a school district that is not flush in money. We don't pay our teachers as well as they do in the Wichita schools or the Mays schools and that sort of thing. But we've got long tenure. We have extremely high test scores. We're way above the state averages as far as the test scores go. But we're not spending nearly the money per student that you're seeing in the Wichita school districts, Mays school districts, and over, those very wealthy school districts. Yet we're getting very high results. And I think it's because it's not an economic issue. It's a parent involvement issue. And until we get that, we get the parents to actually care, we're not going to solve this problem with more money.
Well, that's a good point, Sean. I appreciate that very much. I want Dave to be able to have some time to respond on this. And we touched a little bit on when it came to that parent involvement and kind of the atmosphere with the family home. How does all that tie in? What's your take on this?
Well, I think those are all very valid points. And Sean, on to your point on it may not be fair to put a grade on the building. All we're doing is with our project is translating the data that's already there. So the Department of Education is already doing this, but nobody knows what it means.
So it's just more readable.
Because it's level 1. What does that mean?
Right.
It's how do I translate? How do I understand it? But at the same time, the districts that have kids in level 1, and I don't for a minute doubt the challenges that you've described, but they use those. On one hand, they say it's not fair to hold us accountable for these things, but they want to use that exact information and hold legislators accountable to give them more money because they're saying, see, this proves we don't have enough money. You've just made the entire case that it's not about money.
Mm-hmm.
And so the school, as long as the schools are suing us for more money with that information, then it's for yet another reason important that parents understand what that information really says.
Exactly. And I agree with Sean in the sense that, the family life comes in so importantly in there but we need to have that standard at the school, which perfect. And we got just a couple minutes left before we have to wrap this up here. But as, for example, like a magnet school, to where it's really the same kind of public school, but you have the option to try and get in and they have standards. Why we're not putting any kind of standard on there, even in some of the low-income areas where they may not be involved, but, you get the kids to want to be there. You set the standards and you say, look, if we're going to continue on, this is what we have to do. And I don't know why we wouldn't have any type of standard or objective or any type of line of standardability in some degree in all of our schools like this when we just, like you mentioned, there's some that just don't care. They expect it to just happen. And whether it's the kid, whether it's the parent, or whether it's the teachers, just saying, we're in this area, we're not going to get the best resources, or we just come to accept that, so we're just not going to even try.
Yeah, and Andy, that's not just a low-income problem.
Sure.
That issue exists across families of all income levels. And having performances, having benchmarks, having minimum standards, and there's examples in Kansas schools that point to the benefits of that. We haven't released the grades yet, but looking at the high schools in Kansas City, Kansas, there are 5 high schools there. 4 of the high schools have very, very low grades for all students, whether they're low income or not. But there's one high school that gets pretty good grades.
Sure.
For low income and the not low income kids. And one of the unique differences there is that it's a school that kids have to apply to get to. They have to have certain academic standards to get in, and once they're there, they not only have to maintain their academic standards, they have to have good attendance, and they must have good behavior or they're expelled. So that's, and I don't know how you solve the issue of parents who just don't care, but you can at least make sure that you create environments for the kids and parents who do care, that there's going to be a better education opportunity.
Sure. Absolutely. Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. It's great information, and I think a great way we can at least begin to, even if it maybe doesn't solve the parental issues, we can at least maybe try and start stopping the litigation that continues on and expose a little bit of the double standard that's happening when it comes to the financial debate on all of this. If anybody wants information with you guys, KPI, how can they get involved? How can they reach out? How can they read some of the stuff that you guys come out with?
KansasPolicy.org. Kansas is spelled out. KansasPolicy.org. Later today or tomorrow, we're trying to get through the last few security certificate issues with GoDaddy. The A through F grading is going to be on the website. We'll be mailing out the product. And I want to point out also that the point of doing this is to improve public education.
Exactly.
We want to make sure, we want to help people. This is about understanding what's actually being accomplished so we have a basis to start improving. We're also we're going to recognize the buildings that do improve. Now, we don't have the money to give out bonuses to all the employees, but we're going to give a certificate of improvement, in this case to 119 schools around the state that actually improved a letter grade last year.
I love
it. And hopefully what media could do would be go look, because we're going to send out the press release so they know who they are. Go ask the principals and teachers, what did you guys do to move from an F to a D, or a D to a C, or a B to, a C to a B? What did you do differently? What are the things you're doing that we can replicate across schools all over the state?
That's exactly what we need to do, working together and looking at ideas to be able to improve ourselves all around. I love it. Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute, and as soon as you guys come out with that info, we'll be, of course, reading it here on the air as well, trying to be able to help that way. Dave, we always appreciate you coming in studio, my friend.
Thanks, Andy. Good being here.
Always a good time. This portion of The Voice of Reason has been brought to you by Riverside Cafe. It is Thursday, and it is that time. Dave, what do you think about a 3-pound burger?
Oh, that
yeah.
just gives me heartburn.
Oh, that sounds so good. I'm going to be trying it here relatively soon. Riverside Cafe, 3 locations, 2 in Wichita, 1 in Derby, 9125 West Central Avenue here in Wichita, 739 West 13th Street in Wichita, and 824 North Baltimore Avenue in Derby. They do have the 3-pound burger. I have, though, a complimentary burger and fries to give to you, and let's go ahead and do a caller number. What do you think, Dave? Caller number 3. Let's do caller number 3, 721 8255 316-721-TALK. Caller number 3 will get you your complimentary burger and fries hat tip to Riverside Cafe. Proud sponsors here on The Voice of Reason. Proud sponsors here on the KQAM airwaves. We love those guys to death, very much so. We'll get you a complimentary burger and fries from Riverside Cafe and KQAM Radio. Take a break, wrapping up hour number 2. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There it is, wrapping up hour number 2. Boy, the show goes by way too fast. So much more to get to. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hour number 3, Kansas Department of Labor. They're going to be joining us in studio for a little bit, chatting about some of the work initiatives happening in the state of Kansas. Oh, yeah, we got some good stuff there. Also, congratulations to our listener, Jake, winning the complimentary burger and fries hat tip to Riverside Cafe. We love working with those guys very much so. 2 locations in Wichita, 1 location in Derby. And I've been saying this for a while. And I apologize. You'll be proud of me. I've actually been on a diet lately. I've been trying to, get healthy, stopping the energy drinks. I've been eating a little bit healthier, and I've lost some weight a little bit. I don't know if you can tell or not on the camera. The camera does kind of add 10 pounds anyway, so whatever I lost, I just gained back through the camera there on Facebook Live and on TV. But nonetheless, I did a little bit. But now that I'm actually back to kind of somewhat where I want to be, now I can indulge, and I am going to be indulging with my 3-pound burger from Riverside Cafe. It's happening. We may have to do a Facebook Live on this because that would just be fun. Riverside Cafe, we love those guys. 2 locations, Wichita, 1 in Derby. Let's take a break, wrap up hour number 2. Hour number 3, right around the corner. Lots more to get to today. More information, more talk, more conservatism to expand our minds on a Thursday. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Do you think that there would be a federal government in this administration right now if we have more states, whether it's Kansas or anywhere in the country, say, you know what, I believe that I'm going to go ahead and expand my Medicaid program and I'm going to look for federal aid in order to make that happen? What do you think they're going to say? As we're trying to limit some of these social programs with a Republican majority in both chambers and a Republican presidency, what do you think is going to happen?
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome in. It's great to have you along today on a Thursday, the pre-Friday celebration rolling along. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're almost there. Hang tight. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, thanks again to Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. Joining the program in the last hour, great information, the grade scores, the grade levels on each building, not the district, not the actual school, not the teachers, but the building, so that way the parents and the students actually know exactly what they're in with and what they can do to better and improve their education. There's nothing bad about that, and I appreciate the calls that we had. We'll continue to talk about that later on as we get more information. But let's shift gears a little bit as we go into education and what's after education. What's the point of education? It's not just the educating and, oh, hey, I got a grade level, and you're really happy about that, but it's taking it to the next level, being able to take that to the level of knowing what you're doing when you go into the workforce, understanding what you want to do with a career, and then being able to improve yourself, your life, your family by being able to improve, hopefully, your career as you go on about that. And as we do that, we've seen a drastically low unemployment rate here in the state of Kansas, which is fantastic. What was it? The story came out, I want to say last fall, that we were at a 17-year low for unemployment in the state of Kansas. That's huge news as we're talking about now the national average beginning to drop. The big story about a month ago was 14 states. After they claim it was because of the tax cuts from the Trump administration. Others claim that it's just the economy finally beginning to rebound. Whatever the reason is, 14 states recorded a record low unemployment. Now we're seeing other issues in the state, which is a good problem to have, I think. But the fact that now we have jobs, let's find ways to fill those jobs as we continue to expand in the state of Kansas. And in studio with us, I'm really excited with us. She is the secretary for the Kansas Department of Labor, Lana Gordon, with us. Lana, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. And then also with us, she's the director of the Business and Education Innovation, along with the Kansas Department of Commerce. I remember the story talking about trying to blend the two together and how we can make this happen. Diane DeBacker, good morning and welcome in.
Good morning.
I appreciate you coming in. First off, let's talk about some of the tools and resources. And Diane, talk about, I remember, again, this happened, a few months ago, is trying to blend the two departments together and figure out how education and the Department of Commerce can work together to begin finding ways to train a workforce that we need with the jobs that we have available to us in Kansas.
Yeah, you recall correctly. Yes, we did an interview, and it was a brand new position. It was established by Governor Collier in order to do exactly what you said and bridge that gap between business and education. And one of the things that I walked into, one of the great things was what Secretary Gordon is doing, and that's with the Kansas Career Navigator.
So this is a new program that's come out because of this kind of blending of and the hybrid and ways that we can start making this happen. So, Lana, talk about this online innovation, ways that people can see job opportunities, educational opportunities, and the way that we can kind of tie this all in together and give some opportunities for people that may be looking for something.
Sure. This is a great way for people to be able to explore what kind of career opportunities might be out there. It's a collaborative effort between the Department of Labor, the Department of Commerce, the Board of Regents, and the Department of Education. So it's even just a major task bringing that many agencies together so that their information can feed, the internet with good tools for the public to use to take a look at what kind of jobs are in high demand, what might it cost me for that education, what do each of the schools have to offer in the state of Kansas, and how much is that going to cost?
Sure.
So there's a lot of information out there that's easily accessible.
That is very true. And as you mentioned, it's already a triumph of success, the fact that we were able to get so many departments to work together with their own agendas in mind as well to be able to make this all happen.
Yeah.
So very good. When did this kick off, or is it about ready to kick off?
It's kicked off, and it's actually, it's been around for a little while, but it's kind of been revised most recently. And of course, it's something that Governor Collier, greatly supports. He's trying to inspire and have different opportunities for individuals to get their education and be trained for what the world needs.
Sure, absolutely. Talk about, I mentioned a little bit ago, the unemployment rate in the state of Kansas and how we have seen it go down a little bit. What did you say? We're at 3%, 3.5%? 3.4, which isn't bad. I mean, we've been at a 17-year low. Have we seen that a slow decrease of that? Was it kind of a drastic move? Where have we seen the unemployment and how much it's changed over the past couple of years?
It has been gradually improving, but it's kind of starting to stay steady at that. We don't know if we'll see it dip. Some parts of the state are lower. There's some that are a little bit higher, depending on the area. But the biggest challenge to businesses today is finding those skilled workers to fill their jobs.
Sure.
Because it's so low, because, people who want jobs are employed, and so that's kind of the challenge.
Now it's a good time to where even if people have the job, for them to even start looking for the careers that maybe they may not be in now, but start improving, which is always another good step to that as well. What kind of industries right now are we seeing in Kansas that may need some jobs or may need some people with some trades that we're struggling with right now? Or what industries may be suffering right now with a workforce?
Well, if you go to kansascareernav.gov, that is the website, you will see the state of Kansas pop up. You'll see 105 counties. And if you click in any of those counties, it will pop up the 10 highest demand, highest paying occupations.
Okay.
So it will pop that up. So general managers and operations may come up as a title, and you're thinking, what is that job? You click on that particular link. It describes what that job is, what skills it takes, what schools are in that region to help you get that certificate or that degree. And so that's where you're going to see it. In the Wichita area, no surprise, we need aircraft people.
Sure.
We need registered nurses, accountants, auditors.
Really?
So those are some of your top 10 occupations in this region, and it depends on which region of the state you're in. If you
Okay.
move to the Kansas City area, you see more IT type jobs and health is everywhere. But the website, kansascareernav.gov, is really a tool that high school students can use as they're looking to plan what they may want to do, what they may want to study, but it's also a tool that just a job seeker can use. Maybe they're getting transferred to another part of the state. You click on the county you're getting transferred in, up pops those jobs, up pops the openings, the companies, how you apply. It's
cool.
free, no ads, no passwords needed. It's one of the easiest tools to use right now.
Sure, and it's the entire layout, as you mentioned, for not only for what jobs are in demand in that area, but what career opportunities there are, what kind of requirements or stipulations that actually comes with that. But then you also tie in as well the education in the area on if you are interested in something like that, what type of education can help you in that vicinity to be able to help you get to that goal that you want to have.
Exactly. And so when you think about the 4 agencies that came together to do this, it makes sense.
Sure.
With labor supplying all of that labor data, using the Kansas Works system to feed in the jobs, with the Department of Commerce looking at the businesses, with the Department of Ed tying in all the K through 12 stuff, and then the Board of Regents with higher ed from tech schools, community colleges to 4-year degree programs. It really is something that the state of Kansas should be very proud of, because not many other states have done something like this.
Absolutely. I've never heard of something like this, and it's really cool to hear talk about. I mean, we have here in the Wichita area, which we are very proud of, with WTI, which kind of our trade school, our technical school, to be able to help get some of these courses, and it's tied in with WSU now, and they're working hand in hand, which is really neat. Are we seeing some of the other universities or 2-year or 4-year colleges in the state of Kansas start to do the same type of idea?
Absolutely. I think as businesses really have this high need for workers, they're working with a lot of these institutions to develop programs that are maybe specific to them, or getting them in the skills that they need the workers for. So
sure,
yes, absolutely.
Sure.
The customized training is really something is becoming more vogue than it ever was before. So what you see happening at WSU Tech and at Washburn Tech, and then in the Kansas City area, where a company needs workers right now, right away. They can't wait for a 2-year or 4-year degree. So what can we do in 12 weeks? What can we do to put people on the floor, people in the offices in a short amount of time with a customized training program?
And I'm a huge fan of something like that. I mean, getting into broadcasting, I myself went to a broadcasting school that took 10 months. You interned in the industry at the time. You had to log a certain amount of hours, along with do all the radio and TV side, which conveniently worked out for us, for the show. But those kind of trade schools, to get the tools, work with people in the industry, learn about it hands-on, and then be able to go out and go right into the workforce is huge. And I see a rising of that nationwide, really. I think a lot of people are beginning to focus on that type of education. I really think so. Talk a little bit, and I mentioned this off the air a little bit, but the focus in Kansas when it comes to the workforce, what has been the focus, or what we want to have the focus as? Is it the young generation that's currently in Kansas to maintain them? Because we have seen a lot of them try and leave the state to go for other opportunities. Or is it trying to bring new people into the state and entice them, whether it's with the job opportunities, whether it's with tax rates, whatever the case may be? But is there a happy blend between the two? What's really the focus right now to try and increase that workforce in the state?
I think it's some of both, really. We'd love to keep some of our young people here. I have children who have left the state, unfortunately, but we'd love to keep our young people here. But we'd also like to attract more people to Kansas to fill those jobs as well. So I think it's a blend. And I think that some of the things that we're doing, as a state and with the Governor's Council on Education, looking at ways that we can develop programs or, work together to have the appropriate training for our people, all people, not just necessarily youth either, then we, keep our workforce trained in what they need to have.
Sure, absolutely. Statewide, you mentioned kind of the job needs that were in the Wichita area here, which of course was the aviation, accounting, that sort of thing. Statewide, what's been kind of the major demand that we have a shortage of right now?
Well, statewide, you're going to find anything in healthcare. So registered nurses, yes, they're in all the regions. So as you pop on all 105 counties, you're going to find registered nurses or something in healthcare. In Western Kansas, there's a great need for teachers. And so for elementary and secondary teachers, you'll find that. And then as you move, in the Topeka area, you'll find more type government jobs and agency jobs. So it really does depend on which region of the state that you're in.
Sure. They all got their own little flavors for each region there.
Exactly.
Again, walk through one more time with the website, kscareernav.gov. kscareernav.gov is the website. If you want to look at it, again, it's got both the job demands, it's got local opportunities, it's got the education that ties into there. It's the entire up. But give us another layout of what the website looks like and how easy it is to navigate throughout this website.
You go to kscareernav.gov. Up will pop a screen that shows two different portals. It really shows a portal for a high school pathway, so that maybe would be what a middle school or high school student would go into.
So even the younger kids can look at this.
Yeah, very early on can look at it. I had a person ask me what his 8-year-old should be doing, and I said, looking at one, just what's available, and two, you can learn about the state of Kansas and how it, the geography.
Sure.
So there's that high school pathway side, which really does take them to what's available. What are the educational opportunities within that region?
Sure.
Then there's a side that's the career occupation side, and that's where it will pop up every job that is being posted out there. So you think about all of these different job sites, these national ones.
Indeed.com or Monster, that sort of thing. Yeah.
This is that for Kansas. And so you find out what the job is, where how to apply for it, what the medium and high and low income is for that particular job. And so there's multiple uses for it. I can see somebody as a family sitting down at their kitchen table.
Sure.
The children are looking at it for one thing and the adults looking at it for the other.
Well, I would even encourage even the young kids, especially high school age, that are starting to think, what am I going to do with my life? What do I want to be interested in? To even go to that portal and say, you know what, this is the demand right now that the state of Kansas itself has. If you're looking for high-paying jobs, if you're looking for something that you enjoy doing, this is what's available. This is what the demand is. Now you can start crafting your education towards going towards that goal, and I think that's going to be a huge asset to them.
It is, and then as Kansas, as the State Department of Ed and your State Board of Education has put in the requirement that every 7th grade student and beyond have the individual plan of study. So they've already done an inventory which pops up which careers they may be interested in. Now you start looking at where can I get that in Kansas.
Exactly. It's kscareernav.gov, kscareernav.gov, education, careers, training, understanding what the demand and market actually is for the state of Kansas. It's something very unique. Do you know of another state that's actually doing something like this?
No, not with the collaboration of these agencies.
Like this.
No.
I'm sure, again, and you had mentioned, it was, I bet, of a chore to try and get all of these agencies work together to make something like this happen.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm really proud of the collaborative efforts.
Absolutely.
It's important that we do those and do more of those. And I think that, coming together, there's a lot of hurdles to come together when you're trying to collect data and put that together in a usable form. And so it was a while in the planning. And,
absolutely.
Seeing it come to fruition is great.
Is really cool to see. Again, kscareernav.gov, ksnav.gov. Lana, Diane, thank you so much for coming in studio with us. I know you guys have been kind of doing the tour throughout the state to let people know about this. We appreciate that very much. We'd love to get you guys back on again.
Thank
you,
you.
Andy.
Always a pleasure. 23 minutes past the hour. Let's take a break. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. Lots more to get to. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. 29 minutes past the hour. Appreciate everybody swinging in studio. Diane and Lana with the Department of Labor, Department of Commerce, trying to find ways to help us increase. Look, here's the next step that we take. We have a low unemployment rate, and now we go from the low unemployment rate to people having a job to finding the jobs that they actually want to do with the demand that we have in the state of Kansas. That's a good position to be in, is it not? That's a good place to be. It's better than just saying, well, we need to find some kind of jobs because we have a low unemployment rate and we don't have any job demand for anybody, and it's just going to be really difficult to get any type of job. Now we're taking it to the next level. We have a 3.4% unemployment rate. Can we kind of squeeze that a little bit? Sure. Let's squeeze it a little bit. Let's take it to the next level. You have a job. Is it the job you want? Is it the job that you want to do? Is it going to be your career that you do for long term? Or right now, are you just doing it just for the sake of doing it because it's a paycheck and that's what you need? Let's take you to the next level. Remember, unlike any other nation, we have opportunity. You do live in a country with streets paved with gold. You do have the opportunities where the sky is the limit, baby. Let's enjoy that. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Stay here.
Republicans and Democrats accountable. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
What up? Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the program today. 8:35 is the time. Welcome aboard. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. It's open lines to you for the last half hour of the program on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration rolling right along. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. By the way, tomorrow is Friday. Thank goodness. It's been a wild week this week. What the heck? Tomorrow is also the kickoff of opening day for the baseball season. Wichita Wingnuts kicking off our sister station, KGSO. You can hear that. You can start hearing Wingnuts games every single night. We are the official broadcasting station of the Wichita Wingnuts baseball on Sports Radio KGSO 1410 on the AM side, 93.9 on the FM side. You can hear those games every single night starting tomorrow. Pre-game at 6:45, first pitch at 7:05. You can hear them all season long if you're into the baseball thing. Also, a week from today, next Thursday and Friday, we will be covering Bishop Carroll baseball for the state tournament. That one coming up next week. You'll be hearing that one in the evenings on Thursday and Friday night right here on the KQAM airwaves. So you'll be able to hear that one. Looking forward to those games kicking off next week as well. Open lines to you, 316-721-8255. Thanks again to all of our guests today with coming in, talking about not only education, but then taking it to the next level when it comes to the workforce that we have. Look, and here's the question that I have for you. If you are working, I know that now you're probably at work doing your thing. Maybe you just got off work. Maybe you're starting your work and you're on your way there. Are you doing a job that you're happy and satisfied with? Are you doing a job that you enjoy? Because there's a difference, and you can see it actually generationally right now. You can see the difference between people who just did a job and they did it for their entire lives, and now people that are bouncing around from job to job to job to job, ready to be happy and ready to actually do something they truly, honestly enjoy. There is a huge correlation, or a big difference actually, between the older generation, maybe you're retired now and maybe you'll remember this, where you did the same job for 30, 40 years. You never left. You were there for long term. You were there for years and years and years, and you just did that job, and that's just what you did, no matter what it was, whether it was an engineering job or whether it was a blue-collar factory job. You did it for 30, 40 years, and you retired from that same place, and you knew that place inside and out, and that's all you've ever done, and that's all you've ever known. And when the unemployment rate began to spike and people began to lose their jobs, some of those individuals really struggled to actually find new jobs because that's all they knew. That's all they did. I grew up in the Midwest in Ohio to where it was the auto industry. And people worked in the factory in the auto industry. And when the auto industry began to suffer a little bit and people were getting laid off, they had no idea what to do. They had no other job. They had no other work experience to be able to get any other type of job. They couldn't actually transfer. They were individuals who had done that on the assembly line, building vehicles for their entire life. They knew nothing else. What do you do with that? That's a terrible position to be in, isn't it? But nowadays, the average adult, the average millennial, the average adult that's actually working now goes through 7 different careers in their lifetime on average, where they bounce from this to that to that. And I can attest to that. I've done that myself. I've gone through a lot of different jobs and experienced many different things. I think it's led me to the career that I'm doing now that I thoroughly enjoy. And this is what I want to do as a career for the rest of my life. I love radio. I enjoy it. I want to talk about issues. I want to do it in a flashy, entertaining way. I want to be that 80-year-old guy that still gets all fired up and talks really fast on the radio and says, wow, this guy is kind of entertaining. Because I want to do that. It's fun. I enjoy that. And hopefully, as we talked about in the first hour, the media industry will continue to allow that to happen because there's a demand for it. And as long as there's a demand for it, hopefully we'll be able to stay on top of that. But if you're younger, how many careers have you been through? How many careers have you actually done? How many careers or different types of industries have you worked in? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. 316-721-8255. I can tell you right now, I started off my very first job, and thankfully, I guess luckily, I have never worked in the fast food industry. And I know most high school students, most younger adults, as they're trying to gain some work experience and they try to work, that's the first place they go is the fast food industry, and that's how they get their experience, and that's all the power to them. That's great. I could say I've never done that. My high school job, well, because I lived in a small rural community in Colorado up in the mountains where there was not a fast food joint near me, so we had to drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes to the next town in order to even get any type of fast food, but I never worked there. My first job in high school was working at a feed store, was working baling hay, and was selling grain. And I mean, it fits appropriately with the agriculture we have around here, but I worked at a tiny little feed store that was in our town of Bailey. And I got the 50-pound bags of horse feed and dog feed and cattle feed and everything else. And I unloaded the truck when it came in. And then when people came to buy it, I loaded up their vehicle for them. And we would get the semi-trailers full of the hay and the grass and the straw and everything of that sort. And I would unload the entire semi by myself and stack it. And then I would load people's vehicles up when they came to buy some. That was my job. My very first high school job. And I worked there for 2 years. And it was great. And I loved it. And then I went off to college. And I had a few weird odd-end jobs in college. I was not the smartest in college, I'll tell you right now. I didn't actually work my way through college like, Dave Ramsey and some other responsible people actually try and tell you to do so, but I did not. I took out my living expenses through my student loans, and guess what? I'm paying for them now, baby. My $88,000 worth of living expenses and college tuition for 2 years at State University that I never got a degree from. That was a well-spent money right there, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Winning.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. But I did do a couple odds and ends little projects. I mean, I worked at the university library, not the library, but the bookstore a little bit, which that one didn't work out very well because I tell you what, the professors and the students and even the workforce on universities are so progressive that I couldn't deal. But I would be working at the bookstore, the one where you go to the bookstore to buy your books for the classes that you're taking in that semester, and you walk out of there with $600 worth of 3 books because they're that damn expensive. Yet those, and I would stock those in the bookshelves because the professors would write them, and then every year they'd change a line and it'd come out with a new edition, so you couldn't sell back your old books or give it to the younger, kid coming up and starting that class, but you had to buy a brand new one, and then you'd walk out there with, 4 books for the semester that would cost you $600. You know what I'm talking about, yeah. Well done, college. I worked there for a little bit. In the summertime, I worked for, and I've told you about this before, and it was probably my worst job. Not the fact that I didn't, do a good job at it or anything. I just didn't enjoy it because, first off, it was third shift, so it was overnight from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., and I was bagging ice in an ice factory. And every night during the summer, I would drive. First off, it was about 40 minutes away, and it was up across the Michigan border, so I had to have to drive up to Michigan and smell their air a little bit. And I'd go up there, and I would bag ice. And It would be just, the little dispensary. You go to the grocery store, you buy the bag of ice. Yeah, it was the little dispensary. They had the big tub. It had the ice full. It dropped down into the bag. You'd run it across the line. You'd snap it with with the staple to be able to clip the bag, and then you stack it on the pallet. The pallet gets full. You take it in the other room. It wraps it, and then you store it. So that way in the morning, they'd load it onto the trucks and take it out to deliver them. That was my job for an entire summer, and it was not pleasant. It stunk. It gave me some money, but it stunk. That's what you did. But you go through different industries and you go through different careers and I wouldn't say that was necessarily a career. It was a part-time job that I did temporarily for one season, but you got the experience. Older generations didn't do that. Older generations, and you can attest to it if you did go through this, how many of you that are maybe above 60 or 70 years old, how many of you only did one job your entire life? Actually did one thing. That's it. You got out of high school, maybe you went to college a little bit, and then you worked and you got in, and no matter what it was, but you stayed there. Maybe you bounced around to a couple different companies, but it was under the same industry and under the same type of job, but you did that your entire life. We don't do that anymore. People bounce around, and that's why we have opportunities now. Remember, the sky is the limit. You can do, and I know the progressives hate this and they don't tell you this anymore, but you can do anything you set your mind to do. Period. End of story. There's no argument about it. There's no one keeping you down. There's no abuse going on. There's no, we don't have a racist society anymore to where you can't get a job because you're a certain skin color. We do not have jobs to where you can't get a job because you're part of an LGBTQ community or your lifestyle. And they say, nope, sorry, we don't want your type to be here. There's not that type of mentality anymore. In fact, there's the opposite with the affirmative action that goes on. In some circumstances, and especially even some government positions, we now have to have the rainbow of people that work at a certain job or a certain industry, a certain company, or even an agency within the government, to where if you have two people that are equally qualified, they'll openly go out of their way to choose someone that is different or a minority or whatever, because they want to have the rainbow people there. So that way they can say, and the rainbow, I mean just a plethora of different types of individuals, skin colors or genders or living standards or lifestyles or sexual orientations or whatever. So that way we can say, oh, yeah, we abide by this. Look at this. We're happy. We're going along. Instead of actually looking at the qualifications of individuals. The world is supposed to be, and this nation was built on the fact that if you can do a job, if you're qualified for it, then you're going to get the job. If you are more qualified than person A is more qualified than person B, you're more qualified, you're going to get the job, and you can excel at it. And then if you don't excel at it, they'll go to person B that was a little less qualified, but maybe has a little more drive. That's the way it's supposed to be, regardless of skin color, sexual orientation, gender identification, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care. And 99.5% of the American population does not care anymore either. But they say that 0.5%, they're the ones keeping people down. They say, you can't get jobs. It's easier to play the victim, isn't it? It's easier to play the victim than to actually just come out and say, you know what? I didn't put as much work or effort into it as the next person that got the job. Maybe I had to work a little bit harder because maybe I started off a little bit behind because I didn't have as many opportunities because I lived in a district that was a little bit lower income that didn't have opportunities, or because I went to a school district that didn't really have the same opportunities as some of the others. I had to work a little bit harder, but you know what? I still fell a little short. Instead of saying, oh, woe me, I'm a victim, now I need it handed to me. You know what you say? Guess what? I'm going to work even harder next time. I'm going to come away victorious. I'm going to walk away with that job, and then I can be the success story for future generations. I can be that success story for anybody behind me that looks and says, you know what? He came from nothing. She came from nothing, and look at where they're at today. Look at what they've done with themselves. Look at the opportunities. Never, and I mean never, ever, under any circumstance, period, end of story. I know they always say never, but never play the victim. Don't do it. First off, what does it gain you? Nothing. Except for maybe today's society where you play the victim and then you get stuff handed to you. But usually in a normal, commonsensical, reasonable world, Playing the victim does nothing more than leave you in a bad spot emotionally and personally while everyone else continues to move forward. Everyone else continues. If you work hard, if you put in the effort, if you have that word, and I'm talking, by the way, to the younger generation now. The older generation, you kind of get that. But the younger generation, put in the effort, put in the work. You have no idea how many hours I invested in myself to get to do something like this because I enjoy it and because I found opportunities to where it would actually support my family doing it. You have no idea the hours, the long hours that I still even do at times, but the long hours and the sacrifice and the work that I had to do because I enjoy that. I didn't have anything. My parents didn't have a whole lot of, they didn't pay my way through college. Obviously, I'm paying $90,000 in student loans. I didn't have anything handed to me. They taught me, along with my wife's parents, they taught her the same thing, that you put in the work and you put in the effort, and if you want something, you got to find the money to buy it. And you got to find the way to do it because no one's going to hand you out anything, and if they do, then it's not worth it. You got to work for it, baby. Do it. That's my little motivational speech for your Andy's Optimism.
Andy's Optimism of the day.
All right, I'm ready.
That's right. Do it, baby. Let's get her done. Let's have a little fun today. It is a Thursday. You see the weekend, and by the way, Memorial Weekend coming up in just a few weeks as well. That's really the kickoff to summer. That's the way for you to get out and enjoy another holiday that's coming up. And then, of course, remember what the actual purpose of that holiday is. But that's my motivational speech of the day. Let's get you pumped up. Carpe diem all over this place, baby, because we like to have a little fun. 10 minutes at the top of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program today, about 4 minutes to the top of the hour. 316-721-8255. I don't know where this came from. This is ridiculous. This is the stuff I try not to be involved in. I try to not talk about this stuff because it's ridiculously stupid. But as we talk about the young generation trying to focus on work ethic and actually focusing on, important things, have you seen this? Apparently, people are hearing different things with this Laurel versus Yanny. And I just saw this on Facebook, which is why I had to bring it up because it's all over. And I have not talked about it, nor have I really cared to talk about it.
Laurel.
Okay. Apparently, people are hearing Yanny when they hear this Laurel. I don't know. I don't even know where this came from. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Yanny, Laurel. I don't know, and I don't really care. But apparently, people are hearing two different ridiculous, absurd things from this audio clip: Laurel and Yanny. And see,
Laurel.
Makes no sense to me. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Have you heard Laurel versus Yanny? Here's what we do. Here's what we focus on, okay? Listen really close. Turn up your radio dials right now. You don't pay attention to that. We figure out how to fight tax rates. You figure out how to stop our government bureaucrats. You figure out how to increase your job opportunities. As we mentioned, now you can go from just getting a job to actually improving your job. And you're not going to do that by figuring out the real debate between Yanny and Laurel. I don't even know where this stuff comes from. I don't even know where they come up with these ideas. Hey, look at here. There's a big debate here. What's that one about? It's kind of like the Tide Pod thing. Who is the first person to come out and say, I'm going to eat a Tide Pod, or I'm going to dare you to eat a Tide Pod? If you if you dare someone to eat a Tide Pod, aren't you openly saying, yeah, I want to see what kind of health risks there are by eating a bunch of bleach? I want to see what detrimental issues can actually come from that. Then they take it to the next issue of, I dare you to snort a condom through your nose and pull it out your mouth. Because that's a really brilliant, genius thing to do as a young individual. Then you take it to the next level of the hot coil test. You ever heard that one, the hot coil challenge? You put your forearm on the hot coil of a burner on your stove and see how long you can take it there until you actually have a burn mark and a scar. Yeah, that's a really smart challenge to do. Not only for the idiot that actually does it, but for the idiot that challenged the idiot to do it. And now there was another one too, and it was the what was it? It wasn't Febreze, but it was like window cleaner or something. Or no, it was the compressed air. I don't remember what it was. Something to where now you're supposed to continue to spray it onto your arm until the chemicals burn your arm, and you get the whole buildup on there, and you do have a chemical burn on your arm. That's the new challenge. Because the stupid people that accept the stupid challenges from the stupid people that challenge the stupid people to do it. And we wonder why we have low unemployment rates and we have people advocating for universal health care. Boggles the mind. And while we're eating the Tide Pod, then we can debate about Laurel and Yanny. Good golly. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Maybe someday we can have some reason and common sense back in society and not do these ridiculous, absurd things. Although we do have the movie Jackass as well. So, I mean, hey, maybe that's where we got the ideas. I'm not sure. Everybody have a great Thursday. Friday's right around the corner. Have a wonderful day.